How's it going, everybody? We are starting off the year right. Bitcoin is working to reclaim its 50 MA. We'll talk about Bitcoin on the chart. I also want to go over some recent articles. Open interest has dropped to a 2-month low. We'll look at what's going on there. And I also want to give my thoughts on the Bitcoin ETFs. Now that the year's come to an end, how did they perform in 2024? And also, since we're getting so close for it, I have to bring up alt season. While we aren't officially there, according to this metric, I do believe it's literally around the corner, and this is the prime time to load up. Now, looking at Bitcoin, we are trying to reclaim the 50 MA. We were above it earlier in the morning, but now we're starting to pull back. It would be nice to see us close above it. And also, it looks like we're breaking this kind of a descending resistance. Now, one thing that's interesting is on the Fibonacci retracement tool, you can see from when we started our run, after this brief pullback, when we basically started this entire run, which was very consistent green, we found support at the 0.38. And I wanted to pull up this broadening pattern, this kind of a longer term pattern we've been trading in. I do think there's a possibility we come down and test its support. I think we're not yet out of the woods for this pullback, but that said, take advantage when Bitcoin does pull back. If you want to buy Bitcoin at any point in 2025, I believe now is the time. You don't want to buy in late 2025, you want to buy in early 2025 following the cycle. These are basically the last opportunities to buy. We're unlikely to get a 50k Bitcoin again. We're unlikely to ever see a $15,000 Bitcoin ever again in history. There's a possibility we head towards our 200 MA in the 70,000, but down the road, by the time we test this 200 MA, it could be up at 80, 90,000. Take advantage of Bitcoin when it dips in an overall bull market. If we're in a bull cycle, you buy the dips. That said, I don't think our pain is yet over. Of course, we could just start recovering, reclaim the 50 MA, but I personally think it would be safe, it would be healthy even, to come down and test this broadening pattern just to kind of get this general direction and have a confirmation that we don't break this, that we bounce off of it, and continue our pattern up towards 120,000. I still see no reason why Bitcoin can't make it to 150,000 by the end of this year, by the end of this cycle. And from Bitcoin's top that it made recently, only a 37% run would bring Bitcoin to 150,000. I think once we get to those all-time highs again, a 30-something% move is child's play. And maybe we see more than $150,000 Bitcoin, but I think that's a safe, reachable target. I'd rather be on the cautious side and have a price hit than to be a little over optimistic and have a price target that doesn't hit. Can we see a $200,000 Bitcoin, $250,000 Bitcoin? I guess it's possible, but that's not what I'm aiming for. In my opinion, follow the cycle. If Bitcoin's 150,000 and we're at the end of 2025, that's probably all we're going to get. If Bitcoin's 200,000 and we're in mid 2025, maybe we can get some more. In the end, follow the cycle and it will tell you. Now I want to talk about these improving Bitcoin metrics showing that open interest has dropped to a 2-month low, indicating limited downside risk. Now, Bitcoin futures open interest peaked at 668,100 Bitcoin on December 20th, 2024. 11% of those positions have since been closed. So the current level is about 595,700 Bitcoin, and it's the lowest since November 4. This doesn't necessarily mean the drop is over though. One thing that gives a bit of an indication is futures premium. This gives an idea of which side is basically betting the strongest. Typically, we see about a 5 to 10% annualized premium, but premiums above that signal a stronger sentiment. And look at this, currently the premium is a 15%, the highest since December 20, signaling that the bulls aren't giving up. The bulls know what's coming. Also, perpetual future contracts serve as an indicator of retail traders' risk appetite. So basically this funding rate is adjusted based on the amount of bears and bulls. Exchanges adjust the funding rate based on the imbalance in leverage demand. In neutral markets, the longs typically pay a monthly fee of 0.4% to 1.8%, with rates exceeding this range, signaling increased bullish sentiment. Currently, it's at a 1.3%, but this is the highest over 2 weeks. And as a result, these Bitcoin derivative metrics have improved, even with open interest declining. This basically means the bears aren't very confident in adding to their positions when Bitcoin's under $95,000 or so. And going back to Bitcoin's chart, I think this has a lot to do with the 50 MA. The 50 MA is just a hair over $95,000. And if Bitcoin's under the 50 MA, that is typically a bearish signal. If Bitcoin is above the 50 MA, that is typically a bullish signal. And with Bitcoin trying to reclaim the 50 MA, if it can successfully do so, that would mean even less bears betting on the downside. Now we have some bullish price targets, and we also have some interesting news from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. These Bitcoin ETFs neared a significant milestone. The US spot Bitcoin ETFs are about $2.2 billion away from crossing the $110 billion mark. This makes up over 5.7% of the entire Bitcoin supply. You mean to tell me that these Bitcoin ETFs started earlier in 2024, and in only that period of time, they have accumulated 5% of the overall Bitcoin supply? Imagine if these were approved 5 years ago. They would be at like 20% already. They would have about 1 in every 5 Bitcoin in their holdings. And this is something that we will see one day. BlackRock holds more than 542,000 Bitcoin, valued at $51.5 billion. and this also accounts for almost 50% of the market share among these US spot Bitcoin ETFs. This makes BlackRock the 34th largest ETF globally. And here's something really interesting. The US spot Bitcoin ETFs accounted for about 75% of the new investment into Bitcoin. So they have definitely contributed to pushing it well past $50,000 earlier this cycle. And many point to the spot Bitcoin ETFs for the reason why we broke all-time high before we normally ever would. Does that mean the top comes in a little early? It's definitely possible. That's why, in my opinion, it's best to take profits throughout late 2025, not just targeting November and December like typical cycles. We might see a little bit of a front running, being that we saw all-time high earlier this time around. Maybe we see the top come in a little earlier this time around too, but let's continue on. Ryan Lee, the chief analyst at BitGet, says that the new ETF milestone and BlackRock's growing fund could propel Bitcoin to over 200,000 during 2025. However, this trajectory will be influenced by regulatory developments, market dynamics, and broader economic conditions. In my opinion, the trajectory will mostly be determined by the cycle. This is too easy, just follow the cycle. And speaking of following the cycle, we are approaching that prime time for altcoins. Altcoin season occurs when 75% of the top 50 coins outperform Bitcoin over a 90-day period. This is one way to look at it. And while many altcoins have significantly outperformed Bitcoin's roughly 70% gain in the last 90 days, not all of the altcoins have beaten Bitcoin. But we are getting there. You don't necessarily have to wait until alt season is defined and everyone knows its existence is here. You want to get in before the fact. You want to get in before these altcoins keep running up and outperforming Bitcoin. This is the time while we are approaching the official announcement of altcoin season, you could say. But basically, Bitcoin is at 60%. We're getting towards 75% of the top 50 outperforming, but not there yet. But look at these alts that are outperforming Bitcoin. As Bitcoin goes down this list, you will see more altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, and this is why you want to be in the alts now. Now is the time. What about Ethereum's role in this? Well, as the largest altcoin by market cap, Ethereum typically needs to outperform Bitcoin to ignite a significant altcoin rally. When Ether is doing better against Bitcoin, it signals a risk-on environment. When the more risky things than Bitcoin are outperforming Bitcoin, it means the risk is on for sure. And here's one way you can watch this. Analyze ETH to Bitcoin trading pair. This reflects Ether's value relative to Bitcoin. When you see Ether's value growing against Bitcoin, this is a good sign of alt season. Another important metric to watch is Bitcoin dominance. You'll see that once you top out, basically you start coming down. That is it. I don't think we're going to see over a roughly 62% Bitcoin dominance. Who knows? But that's just my thoughts. You can see this. Once we broke this trend, there's no recovering from it. It becomes a resistance. And although this time we broke the trend and popped right back in it, you'll notice this was very short-lived. It lasted like 2 days that it was over it. We did technically get one candle to close above it. But you know, to me, dominance is dropping. Watch this trend line. I think we are going to find this as resistance, and dominance is going to steadily drop. We are at the right timeline for it. We will start seeing more alts outperforming Bitcoin, and this will cause dominance to drop. By the time alt season is officially announced, Bitcoin dominance could be down here at 50%. Once we have 75% of coins outperforming Bitcoin, that's basically what you're looking for. We're not there yet, but we are getting close. But you can see last cycle, Bitcoin had this clear trend until you get into the new year. We got into the new year, look at that. January, we dropped off like a cliff. Here we are in 2025, the new year, we're gonna drop off like a cliff. Alt season's coming, get ready. How are you feeling about today, guys? It's a nice start to the year. This is exactly what we're looking for. Things are looking bright for the crypto sector, for the Bitcoin miners, for alts, for all of the Bitcoin plays. 2025 is the year. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Here's to a good 2025.